difficult ones tend to be law and finance, because what we don't want you to do is do something that is, so what lawyers would call black letter law. It's got to be law related to management or to a management practice. So the things like contract risk is okay, but if what you want to do is an analysis of an act of parliament, then that isn't okay. Finance as well can sometimes be quite difficult, because we do get people who want to get involved in really quite difficult areas of financial theory, and again, it's not something that's specifically management related. So for things like finance and law, you may have to have a number of conversations, so that's the important thing. Let me just pause here, and someone's asked a question. So Jodie, let me just read what you've said. Just a second. Okay, good question. Good question. The reality is you're an MBA, so the chances of what you are doing being truly unique are, in a very broad sense, quite slim. It's not going to happen. We get, for example, dozens and dozens of dissertations on motivation. It's the single most popular topic that MBA students do. And if all you did was motivation, then it would be pretty boring, because we've read it all 20 times. I actually read it 200 times. But if you do motivation in your organisation, that might be unique, because nobody may ever have looked at elements of motivation in your organisation. So what makes yours different is the context, which is what I was talking about trying to make it specific and focused. The greater the focus that you give it, whether that's in terms of a sector, a country, an organisation, then if you want to use the word unique, the more unique it is. I'm not sure that's probably very good English. It's either unique or it isn't. But the more, it's about giving it some focus and some different type of focus. The times when it becomes difficult, and I suppose less unique, if I can really mash this up, is where what you're doing is very, very general. In which case, if it's been done by lots of other people in that way, then it's not particularly good. So it's about trying to give it a focus, and I think that's where the individual differentiation comes in. Will it suffice to write on project conflict resolution? Well, that illustrates my point about a single sentence. I actually know what all those words mean, and I can guess what the sentence means, but without much more information, all I would do is I would say possibly yes, possibly no. What do you mean by project conflict resolution? What projects are you talking about? What conflicts are you talking about? And then I could maybe give you a bit more information. So that, in a sense, sort of nicely illustrates the point I was making about single sentences. Maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not a good idea, and without more information, I can't tell you. One of the things that we also do like to see is an objective which has got an outcome. So recommendations are important. So it's not just a general. We don't want a long essay. We want something that's got some point, and that somebody could pick it up, read it, and say, yes, that's really useful. I could do something with this. Also needs to be achievable and realistic. And by achievable, we mean that in a couple of ways. We sometimes get people who sort of miss the point and say they're going to do 500 interviews. Well, you could do 500 interviews, but in that case, your dissertation took about 10 years, which is not particularly sensible. So we're talking about achievable in the sense of actually there's a work package there that can be done in the time frame, but also realistic in the sense that is this something that you are actually capable of doing? Either a good or a bad example, depending on your perspective. A couple of quarters ago, I had a student from Nigeria who decided he was going to do a strategic overhaul of Aldi supermarkets. Now, Aldi is a German supermarket company, which is phenomenally successful. I mean, it's coming to the UK and it is just wiping the floor with all the other established supermarkets. It's also one of the most secretive companies in Europe. So my question to this guy in Nigeria was, do you have any contacts with Aldi? And by contacts, you need to be really senior people, because you're talking about strategy, and there's probably only about a dozen people in the whole organisation do it. So do you have any contacts with them? Do you speak German? Did you know that they were the most secretive company in Europe, or one of them? And did you know that they were also one of the most phenomenally successful companies in Europe? And the answer to all those questions came back, no, 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 no. Utterly unrealistic. So, be sensible about this. It's about being sensible. And if you come up with an idea which we think is not remotely sensible, we won't throw it out. Even if you submit it as a proposal, but we will look at the proposal on the basis, actually, you don't really understand the point. It doesn't endear us. And we also expect you to do some primary research. Whether that's interviews, whether that's questionnaires, whether it's focus groups, we do really want to see that. If what you want to do is an entirely desk-based piece of work, then okay, but it's got to be a clever desk-based piece of work. We would expect, for example, if it's a finance thing, we don't just want simple return on investment calculations. We would expect to see some really heavy-duty financial mathematics. So, and if you want to do something which is just looking at people's websites, then we'd expect to do some very nice content analysis. We don't actually just want something that's desk-based. So there's a lot of things going on in here, and for Anglo-Ruskin students, you've got 3,000 words to play with, and it's got to be really tight. There's a lot to cram into this, and this is just the idea. So just some things to focus on. These are the kind of boxes that you've got to tick. So when you're on the bus or in the bath or wherever you do your thinking, just get these things going through. And some of the ideas that you'll come up with, you go and talk to somebody, give them that list and say, does it meet these criteria? They'll just laugh at you, and that just happens. And others, some of you will be really lucky. First idea you come up with, bingo, it's there. And some of you will struggle, and it's different people respond to this in different ways. We'll accept the final submission whenever, as soon as it's ready. We've got a late date, but we only look at it once. So if you put one in that's early and very rushed, and we respond to it, we will not respond a second time. So we'll only look at it once. So when it goes in, make sure it's what it is. Okay, so you can write in the box on this. So I know these are one sentences, but let's just think about whether or not they might feasibly meet the criteria. Is a study of motivation in a bank, you think, the sort of thing that an MBA dissertation could be based on? Just write your answer in the box. Let's see what people think. So you can write it in the chat box. So Althea says no to general motivation for who? Which bank? Well, okay, so these are all questions that we would want to ask. But in principle, motivation is a management topic. And if we knew what the bank was, if we knew what the area was, that would work. How about a new marketing strategy for Apple?